Join me on a fascinating journey where I show you some of the techniques used in scale aeromodelling. So what I'm going to have a look at now is the undercarriage. Now it's made up, or the uprights are made up of this 2mm 1/8 ish, if we say 1/8 carbon tube. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clad it in short lengths, lengths of 3/16. Okay, so that should leave me about a 32nd either side to create the wooden structure. So what I've done is I've cut the 3/16 wood to strips, which is the right width. What I need to do now is I need to cut a channel half the diameter of the tube. So I need to create a chamfered channel in there. And I'm going to do it with one of the permagrit tools. This is one of the small fine tools, and it's a rounded rat tail, but it's curved. And I'm going to drop that into the channel and just work my way along. But first of all, I'm going to measure how long one of these is, and then I'll make 2 pieces that are going to be long enough to do 1 leg. So it's going to take 8 pieces in the end to do this. So I'll cut 2 pieces, we'll hollow out 2 of them, and then we'll glue them to the leg and see if we can actually shape them the way we think, and see if it works. So all I'm doing is using the little tiny narrow fine permagrit, and I'm gently filing a channel carefully down the middle, and periodically I just lay a piece of 2mm tube in there just to see how far down I'm going, whether I've gone far enough. So I'll keep filing this away, then I'll cut it in half, and then I'll show you the next step. The 2 sections are clamped either side of the carbon rod, and then a little drop of CA is applied just to soak in and set it. This doesn't have to be that strong, but you don't want them falling off. And we're going to shape them in a minute, so they need to be secure. This one at the rear has already been fitted and glued, and it's ready for shaping. I'm just letting this one set, which actually is very quick because I'm using CA. On this side you can see that the shaping has taken place, and at the midpoint it remains square section, and at the top and the bottom is a square section, but in between the wooden sticks are rounded, so they're pretty much there, just a little bit more shaping to do. And that's what I'm going to do to this side. That's what I'm going to do next. And all I'm going to do is use a flat permagrit file just to get in there and shape them. As a quick interlude, I thought I'd just make a new hoop for the front of the cowl area on the aeroplane. And I thought I'd use my technique that I showed you in a previous video of forming carbon toes within a silicon tube. And this is the 1.5mm inner diameter, and it's a 2.5mm outer diameter. And I've tried a slightly different technique. This time I've just used pins to form it around the edge. That's a lot easier to do and to set up than little bits of tape and what have you. I didn't put any plastic sheet down, which I should have done, just to protect this board from the epoxy sticking, but I didn't actually get very much epoxy on the tubing on the outside. What I used was the, I think it was the 3-gram toe, or the 3K toe, but it's doubled, so you get 6K right the way through, and that filled it nicely. There were no air voids, and I didn't have to inject it with silicone. The very beginning, which is drawn through from this end, the very beginning didn't have much resin in it, and there is a void, but that bit you extend and pull further than you need. So this excess bit here I don't need, I only need from there to there. Okay, so all of that bit, the usable bit, is nice and solid, no voids, which is perfect. So that seems to be the way to do it. 6K toe, 2 3Ks, 3K doubled up in a 1.5mm inner silicon tubing. Seems to work beautifully. So it's been drying overnight, so we'll pop the pins off and see what we've got. And it's come away, it's not stuck to anything, it's not stuck to the wood. I didn't take any precautions with the former or anything like that this time. Sorry for all the noise, it's a bit windy outside. I doubt that's going to come off without cutting it. Quite often you just have to turn it or twist it slightly just to break the joint. You can just see the tubing going white where it's no longer adhered to the edge, to the outside of the silicone. Now, if I could get that off without damaging it, that would be lovely, because this was my last piece of the 1.5mm. I don't think it's going to come off. I'm going to have to cut it. That's a shame, isn't it? I'm just being a cheapskate, trying to avoid buying some more, but actually I do need some more of this silicone tube because this is a good size. So I'll just break it in the middle, cut it in the middle. Did that actually cut? It's not left much of a mark. I think the blade in this scalpel has seen better days. Oh, this is the one I use for cutting aluminium tubes, so that's probably why. Yeah, it's gone through now. And then you just slide it, and it should slide off. There we go. I think it was just caught on the end. Not wishing to play the ball. Try again. Right, we'll cut it into halves. The blade really is dull. And there we have a nice rigid hoop, and that will go over the front of the fuselage right where the cowl sits. So the removable bit of the cowl will rest on this. So I wanted something a little bit better than the flimsy balsa wood that I was using. Alright, we'll fit that, and then we can get back to shaping those undercarriage. So this is the part we're actually trying to replace, and it's quite flimsy and I kept breaking it. And as you can see, the former is exactly the right size to produce carbon hoop, the required diameter. So all I'm going to do is look for my white Chinagraph pen. Well, not Chinagraph pen, it's a white marker. And I'm just going to put little marks where I need to cut it. And I'm also going to put a little mark where the centre is. Oops. Easier said than done. Get it aligned exactly right. There we go, and the centre is there. Because I've got to put a carbon rod across there. So we'll just cut this, and I'll try cutting it with a scalpel and just roll it. First of all, I'm going to cut that loop off. Just use cutters for that. In fact, they cut really cleanly. I'll go with those for this bit as well. I shot them around the room, hopefully not through any tissue. That's what usually happens. Right, so that's our hoop. Get that out of the way a little bit, if it will. And that is going to go on there, but we have to extend this arm out a little bit. Right, this will do. So we need to make some legs that long. This is what destroys your scalpel blades. Cutting carbon or aluminium tube by rolling it like this. It does work eventually. And amazingly, it's level. easy way of doing this. That should do that. Looks reasonably straight. It's covered by the cowl anyway. It's just a support structure for underneath. I might actually add some carbon rod to the back here just to give it another bit of stiffness, but this should do. Let's add this top piece. Yeah, that's nice and strong now. Not for too much weight. We've just got to try and cut these off now without doing any damage. Might be easier said than done. Actually, it was very easy to trim the edges. All I used was the Dremel with a cutting disc in it, and that was very, very gentle and didn't do any harm. So there we go, that's that little task taken care of. Now, as you can see, I've been adding the wooden strips to this, and I'm now doing the cross members. Do you remember I took these two carbon tubes out because they were in the way of getting these side panels on? Well, they can go back in now. This one's been shaped and fitted, and I've just got to do or replace this one. This is the front spar that goes across here, and what I'm going to do is clad it in the balsa the same way I did on the other side. So just need to mark out how much I want. So I want these were the right length, and actually because there's balsa in there now, they need to actually be shortened, which is fine. So I'll do them the same length and then shorten them in situ to make them fit. So that's all I need, and then this is scrap. So I'll just cut the bit we don't want off. And I'll just tidy up the end of that a little bit. There we go, that's the midpoint. Now what we're going to do is the same as last time. I'm just going to create a channel all the way down with this little tiny permagrit rat tail file, needle file, whatever you want to call it. Now you just got to guide it, and it's fairly easy to stay in the middle. Just keep the size of the margins, or keep the size of the wood that's showing on either side the same all the way down. Just gently goes all the way down. Once you've started, it tends to follow the line that you've already sanded. So it's fairly straightforward. I mean, this is all obvious stuff. It's all fairly basic. Sure, you figure all of this lot out. You don't need me to show you. And then just keep running up and down until you've gone 1.5 millimeters in that you need to go. It's probably only about 1 millimeter down you need to go. Come around how big the tube is. If it's 2 millimeter tube, then you need to go down 1 millimeter, obviously. The idea is when you join these two halves together that the carbon rod is completely concealed. And I could actually use much thinner carbon rod than I have, to be honest, because I didn't really think I was going to be doing this balsa sheathing idea, but the size is okay. If I was to do this model again, I could make it much lighter than this. I've used too big a diameter tube. I should have used a smaller tube and then bulked it up with either straws or like this with balsa. Let's have a look, see how close we are. Close but no cookie. And then let's trap that in there. Wrong tube. Trap that in there. Close it with that one. And just see if we can actually get it to seal. See, it has at that end and the middle, but this end is still too thick. So one of these is too thick. It's that one. When I say too thick, it just needs a bit more sanding. The channel's not deep enough. I'm going to try using thick CA this time. The reason I'm doing this is because I want the glue to sit inside, not on the outside. If it's on the outside, the glue hardens the balsa wood, and then it makes it a little bit harder to sand. So I'm going to try and just put it in the channel, see if that works. And try not to stick my fingers to it. You've got to work fairly quickly here because I need to squash these together. I had the clips out ready, but I didn't. So I think this has probably already gone off and I've not closed it up tight enough. So that was a failure. Don't know why I keep that one. I don't know why I'm clamping them. There's no point. The glue's already gone off. So that was a failure. So to try and save me a bit of work sanding, I've actually managed to not close the wood up as tightly as I wanted to do. Never mind. Never mind. I don't think the seam will be seen. It won't be that obvious. So, next thing we've got to do is just sand it to shape. I'm just going to make it a little bit squarer. Just going to true it up. In fairness, it is sanding easier, which was the reason for using the glue method I did. The minute I started to assemble it, I thought, oh, I've done the wrong thing here. And I did. Hadn't expected the thick CA to go off quite as thick as I had, as quick as it did. Trying to make this section a little bit more square. See how it's rectangular at the moment. I'm just going to bring it to a more of a square shape. Right, that'll do. So then all I need to do is work out how long it's going to be. Now what you have to be careful of is to make sure that you actually get this nice and level, horizontal. So I need to step back a little bit and make sure that they're the same. and that's the mid. That does that. That gives me the two angles then I need to sand to, and that's the middle point. Remember, there's a carbon tube carbon tube inside there, so once you start sanding this, it's not going to be as easy as you think. And make sure you go a good ½ millimetre outside the line, so that this part is going to be too big. And then we'll offer it up and just bring it down to the actual size, so that we don't get it wrong. We're actually ending up right on the line, which is good. So all I'm going to do now is just round the sections. The centre and the two ends are square, but the inner two sections are rounded. So all I'm going to do to achieve this is just use a half round permagrip file and just go out the centre of each section and round it. Just keep rotating it in your fingers until it's nice and round. The ends and the midsection will take care of itself as you do it. And you can hear the hardened edge of the glue. So even though the way I did it should have removed any glue ridge, it hasn't really worked. So that's a round section. You can see it chamfers to square quite smoothly, the centre section, and then at the ends I'll just do the same, just gently bring the radius to the square. And then we'll do the other side. What I'm hoping to do, and I've ordered some today, because early on I said I'm having a real problem with colouring the wood to make it look like the varnish that's on the full size. I tried some stain on the cockpit interior, as you saw, and that's actually been a bit of a disaster because it's much too dark, and I should have tried it, done a test first, and I didn't, which was rather silly. But either way, the glue that's in the wood, I'd had a bit of a glue moment inside the cockpit, and a bit more glue got on the back panel than I really wanted, and it's made a bit of a mess of it. And when I put the stain on top, it didn't soak in. So what I've got to do is actually paint the inside of the cockpit, and also these legs, these wooden fairings, or these wooden legs, uprights, they've got to be coloured, and it's a sort of a honey colour. And what I'm going to do is something that was suggested, or what I'm going to try is something that was suggested by Bernard Bruins and Matt Johansson. They suggested using coloured pens to stain or colour the wood. Matt's suggested an acrylic paint pen, which is what I've got on order. They should be arriving tomorrow. Bernard suggested an alcohol-based paint pen. So I haven't ordered those yet. They're a lot more expensive. They're made by Downer Roni, or Roni, whatever the name of this art company is. Downer, oh, whatever. So I'll have to see what happens with the pens I've ordered, just see if that works. I'll do it on a test piece this time. And if that works, what I'll do is I'll paint all these undercarriage legs with these pens, and I'm hoping the grain will still show through a little bit if I just put a light colouring on. And I'm going for a yellowy orange type colour. I think that's going to be the right sort of thing. So there you see we've got our section. So it goes that way up. I'm going to round that off a little bit more towards the end. Because it's only the ends are square. And I've yet to figure out how I'm going to do the fittings on the end. I'm toying with cutting them on my plotter in foil and then sticking them on, just various little metal parts. So we'll put this on here and then we'll hit it with a bit of zap or a bit of super glue. See if we get it lined up nice and level. That's good. Triple check it. It is. It's nice and level. And that should be good. As I say, these spreader bars, the front and rear, should actually be flat section, not round. But I think you'd be hard pressed to tell that they're not flat from the 3D drawings. It's the photographs that will show that, and I'll bias the photographs towards not showing that too much. So there we go. Okay, the next job we have to do, and that's probably for the next video, because this one's long enough, I think. The next task is going to be adding the control horns to the elevators, and they're right on these apex points here, and the rudder, which again is on this apex point here. And what I'm going to use for this is some of that carbon rod. I tell you what, I lose stuff like you wouldn't believe. But, I put things down and then forget where I put it. I'm doing it all the time. People say it's old age, I'm not sure. But anyway, I'll get some more 1mm carbon rod, and then I'm just going to make a little hole in the tissue just behind that joint, and then I'm going to insert the carbon rod right the way through, and it's going to be the same length as the drawings suggest. And then either side of the carbon rod, I'm going to use some flat carbon section that's tapered to a shape. Just shape the carbon rod and just attach 4 of them, one to the top and one to the bottom, to give it some shape. The rod, the 1mm rod, will do all the work, but the other bits of carbon are just aesthetic to make it look like it's a tapered horn that we've got. And then they run directly to the side of the cockpit there, the rigging lines and the rudder. The reason I want to do this now is I want to make sure that everything underneath the covered section of the fuselage is good and is working, because I would prefer not to take the aluminium sections off again. So I want to make sure it all works and the radio makes these function properly before I close up the fuselage. So I don't think getting it to fly tomorrow is an option. I think I'm just going to relax on that and wait for the next flying session to have a test flight. So so there we go. Horns next, but that's in a future video. If you've enjoyed the video, please click like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.